Yeah.
I love the subject.
Okay, buddy, we're going to roll and you may begin when you're ready. Right there.
Welcome to Growth Solutions. I'm your host, Bruce May, and we have one of my favorite guests has come back with us, Jim Robertson. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Bruce. It's good to be here.
So the short version is you are a business coach, a consultant. You work with a national organization of only about 100 people, a little more than 100 people, called TAB. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this last time on your show, when you were on the show here, about how you form peer groups with groups of clients that can share experience so everybody can learn collectively from everybody else's trials and tribulations, and you facilitate those meetings, which I think is a brilliant way to do coaching, because you're accessing all this knowledge. You're basically creating a bank of knowledge that everybody gets to access. And the reason I like that is because, and this is what I want to talk about today, when you drill down into all these things that the business people need to get good at if they're going to be a business person, the business of running a business, which isn't the nuts and bolts and the stuff that they like, whatever it is, plumbing, cars, whatever, but the business of running a business, so marketing, sales, operations, those things. I want to kind of get into the weeds and talk about this and see if we can kind of reveal some of the wisdom a little bit that's shared in these meetings, you know. So let's address each one of these topics in turn, and let's talk about process, because, you know, process, people go, well, what is process? Process to me is what guarantees what we were talking about earlier before we started filming. It guarantees repeatable experience, right?
Absolutely. As we talked about last time, you need a superior customer experience. You need delighted customers. Process allows you to do that in a programmatic and repeatable way. So every customer leaves the encounter delighted with your company, with you. And the only way you get that is through process, through procedures. And I don't find a lot of business owners really look forward to creating processes and enforcing those processes.
You know, this is funny, because this gets back to a common complaint I hear from business owners, which is, oh, you know, I can handle every aspect of my business, even though they can't, but they always say, but it's just the people, it's just the people. Somebody fix the people and I'd be happy, right? Well, the way you fix people is not by yelling at them or screaming at them, it's by creating processes and training them, okay, this is the way we do it, right?
Right. Look, in my career with GE and outside of GE, I find the vast majority of people come into work every day and want to do a good job, even a great job. People don't come in, well, maybe a very small percentage come in maliciously, but people come in and they want to do a good job. If you create that environment within your company, if you have understandable processes, if people know how to function, if people know what the definition of a good or great job is, that's what you're going to get from them.
So that's what you do. That's what you did at GE, and you actually started a businesses for GE, right?
Yeah, I was very fortunate to help start the operations and maintenance business, and I started the long-term service agreement business in GE Power. And you know, my last 12 years, Bruce, I was either involved in acquiring and integrating businesses, starting businesses, or in one case, I was sent to fix a business that was underperforming. So I was very fortunate. Every year and a half, 2 years, they would pull me into a new business. As soon as that business got running well, they'd go, hey, we have another problem over here. Would you go do this? So it was a wonderful experience, but it was also boot camp for fast evaluation of what was right and wrong, and what to apply to fix those businesses or integrate them into GE.
Right. So the process area, I mean, this is a very large topic. Process has been around for a long time. It's been integrated in total quality management back when IBM was doing that, and everything that's evolved since. It was basically the foundation for Baldrige.
Yes.
And even ties back into Six Sigma and everything that came out with that, right? So process, just to take Baldrige as an example, they identify key areas where you need to have processes, and you know, they have customer focus, product focus, and you know, the knowledge base, which I love, which is where all the data goes, so you analyze and everything. Essentially, when you're going into a business, you can really just, you can ask them where's your biggest problem, but you can also look at the data and just kind of see it there too, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes it's clear from their income statement. Sometimes it's clear from their balance sheet where the problems are. But I like to go into a business and say, look, there's a point where a customer makes first contact, and there's a point where they pay their invoice. What is involved in your business from endpoint to endpoint? And when you think about process, that's what you need in your business. Whether it's a formal written process or whether it's an informal process, you need process to cover all of that. How do you market? What happens when the phone rings? When the phone rings and you're into a selling situation, how does that work? How does the handoff from sales to operations occur? What does operations do with that? How does the handoff from operations to finance occur for the billing? How does the follow up with the customer? And after that transaction is done, how do you keep that customer engaged with your company? All of that is process, and all of that has everything to do with a customer liking or disliking your company.
Right. You know, Sam Walton was brilliant at that,
Oh,
and you can point to lots and lots of individual business owners who scaled up from nothing to monstrous business, and they all have that same thing in common. They focus on process and listening to their customers. I remember when I was just got out of college, you know, last century sometime, I lived in Southwest Houston, and there were Walmarts all around town, and it was big, but he opened his first Sam's store right off of Fondren, right, just down the street from me. And so we thought it was great fun. We go in there and you could buy, you know, giant bags or boxes of all kinds of stuff and save a lot of money. So we got hooked on it. We go at least once a month. We go there and buy stuff. And every time I went in that store for over a year, this was his only Sam's store, his first Sam's store. Every time we went in there, he was in the store. Wow. And he was walking around talking to his employees. He was talking to the customers. He was talking to everybody. And if you didn't know who he was, he just seemed like an ordinary guy. And he was basically picking everybody's brain, and he was constantly going, okay, how do I make this process better? How do I make this experience better? I think that, to me, is the most fundamental thing about business, that if you want to be successful, you've got to wrap your arms around.
You do, and process is palpable to the customer. You know, Bruce, every business you deal with that has great process and great training, because you feel it when you go in there. And you know every business that doesn't have good process and good training, because you can feel it and you can see the chaos. So it's palpable to the customer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they sense it right away. And even the littlest things. I remember when I was a kid, we used to drive around on family vacation in the summer, and Holiday Inn we liked because they were consistent, right? They had consistent processes. You went from one to the next. And it impressed me at the time, and I've never forgotten. Today it's standard practice, but in 1963 or whenever it was, they did a simple thing. They created a process that just required that the maids come in every day and wrap the glass with plastic. And you didn't even know whether it was really clean or not, but it just made a statement. This has not only been cleaned, it's all wrapped up, right? And it was so impressive to me, because in that one simple act, they had created a visible definition of what their brand was all about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I guess, you know, how do you go about explaining the importance of process to your clients when you're talking with them?
Well, it's interesting. More often than not, other board members challenge them on process. A business owner will come in with a particular problem. Oh, I have this problem. And other board members will go, well, why do you have that problem? What's the genesis of the problem? And if you solve that problem, are you only moving the issue one step downstream within your overall process? Because almost every business goes through this. You don't need a lot of process when you're a one-person company, a two-person company, maybe a 5-person, maybe a 10-person company. At some point, growth will demand that you become more programmatic and more process-driven. And the symptoms of that are you start having a problem here, you solve that, the problem pops up over here, it's whack-a-mole. But the bottom line is you're just moving problems around the process, and until you iron out that end-to-end process from first customer encounter to close out of that invoice, you're just moving problems around your business.
Yeah, right. That makes perfect sense. Well, we're going to have to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit more about marketing sales, because I know those are the other two key areas.
I love those.
Yeah, so, and I do too. I do a lot of consulting myself and teaching on that. So join us, stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages. This is Bruce May. On my show, I talk a lot about how to build an automated marketing system to capture and nurture more leads and help you grow your business. You do this by entering contacts into the system where they can be nurtured by sharing content that helps educate them about their needs and your solutions. When you nurture leads this way, you drive more business into your sales funnel and ultimately close more deals. To do this, you need an automated marketing platform, and Keep has one of the best ones I've seen. It's easy to use and even comes with a campaign builder that has a drag and drop canvas so you can easily drag key elements onto the canvas and link them up. The best part about Keep is that it starts at only about $100 per month, so any business can afford to use it. If you want to begin using automated marketing techniques to grow your business, go to growthsolutionstv.com/keep and fill out the form. We will put you into contact with a Keep solution provider that can help you get started. That's growthsolutionstv.com/keep. Get started today and grow your business to new levels with Keep, the automated marketing platform. Welcome back. We're here talking with Jim Robertson, who's part of the TAB organization, which is fairly sophisticated coaching and business coaching and business training, kind of everything rolled together. Marketing, which I do a lot of training on marketing, and it's always frustrating for me because if I go in a room like at a Chamber of Commerce and there's 20 people there, there's 20 separate businesses. And I'm talking in broad strokes about what you generally should do. But before it's over, I've got to get into the weeds with everybody because what applies to one business doesn't apply to the next.
Right.
And I've got to dig down into that. So your board gives you the means to do that in a kind of informal way. How effective is that when people are talking and sharing their knowledge about marketing?
It tends to be very effective because everyone on that board is a business owner. Mm-hmm. From very early conversations with an owner, most people don't know the difference between marketing and sales. And so we spend time on that. What does marketing do? Mm-hmm. And I put it simply sometimes, marketing gets the phone to ring. Once you answer it, now you're selling. Mm-hmm. But they're very, very different activities. In fact, I would argue they're almost opposites of each other. But every board member in that room has either gone through it or already understood effective marketing and effective selling, or they wouldn't be there because their business would have failed. So it tends to be a very effective environment for that. Sometimes I don't have to say very much because invariably there's a very good marketer and very good seller on each one of those boards.
Yeah, I would imagine there would be, yeah. So I've got, I have a few clients I work with, and it's a challenge for me when I'm actually responsible for essentially being a director of marketing in that scenario, for figuring it out because there's so many variables here. There's, what is the promotion? Is there a promotion? And just what's the environment? Is it a channel partnership, a supply chain, or you're reaching consumers? You've got all these variables that you've got to kind of put in place to just get the lay of the chessboard before you can even start thinking about it. And then you've got all these potential, what is the offer? What is the delivery mechanism? What is the ad going to be? And what's the message going to be? And you got to work all that out and then test everything. Recently, I had a client that had the resources to test virtually every medium, and we did.
Wow.
We did regionally, locally here. We did TV, we did radio, We did print with Hearst Media. We did online, and Hearst does online, by the way. I don't think I'm giving away any secrets here. Hearst is now actually, I think, the largest partner with Google
Really?
because they spend half your money buying Google ads. And they're very good at it. And they tie that to the content, which I love because they're really good at content marketing. And then online sites like Woodlands Online. So I learned a lot because I had sort of a textbook case of one client that was testing everything. And it sort of proved my point was that you really don't know what works until you test it, right?
Exactly.
And you've got to be willing, and you got to be able to afford to test it. So, and that's a challenge for small businesses because they have limited budgets.
Absolutely. Look, what people will learn in the tab board environment, and certainly will learn from me, there's 100 ways to market. Start with the ones that are very inexpensive or even free. Try those, and if they work, keep doing them.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't, throw them out of the boat and go to the next one. That's not failure, that's learning. And so what happens in the board environment is they can share that knowledge. Hey, I tried this and it didn't work at all. That method of marketing seems dead to me. Don't even go there. So a business owner can very quickly understand what's effective in North Houston.
Mm-hmm.
But my attitude is exactly what you just said. Try it. If it doesn't work, walk away from it. Go to the next. Start inexpensively and move up. Don't start with the most expensive marketing. Most of our small business clients couldn't afford it anyway.
Yeah, right.
There's online, there's social media, there's networking, there's chambers of commerce. That's very inexpensive to do.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So how much of your business is actually business to business compared to B2C, business to consumer? A little both?
It's probably 75% business to business.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the business to consumer, there's big swaths of that we don't see too much of in tab. Restaurants and bars, we don't see too much.
Right, right.
Too much of that. Direct medical care. But we do have a law firm in one of our tab boards now who is really flourishing. It's wonderful to see. Mm. But it tends to be business to business. That law firm specializes in business to business.
Okay.
But it does tend to be a little heavier weighted in business to business, although business to consumer, we've seen some great successes.
Yeah. So the B2B, obviously lead generation is really critical and important, unless it's a supply chain and then they just need a few clients and they're done.
Right.
So how do you address that lead generation issue? Because it's like you got the salespeople here and they're going like, we don't have enough leads, or we don't have enough qualified leads, or you're always fighting that battle. Do you rely on, or do your clients work a lot in LinkedIn? What are generally their approach?
Well, there's a couple approaches. Number one is getting someone to carefully define who their target market is, whether it's individual consumers or other businesses. Who is that target market? What's the position in a company that buys your products? Geographically, where your products bought? How big are companies that buy your products? So carefully define your target market.
Yeah.
Then you can start looking at, well, LinkedIn has an amazing search engine now that you can target very directly. Hoover's is a wonderful is a wonderful way to go out and find very specific companies. So there's a number of ways to go out and look specifically, but until you define that,
right.
Don't even waste your time.
Right, right. And trade shows I love. Trade shows can be the boon or the bust of any business, right? I've had this experience where I was working with companies and we go to the biggest trade shows literally in the world, and we spend all this time and money there, and we get back with this long list of cards, hundreds or thousands of connections, and we're all looking around, scratching our heads, and we just realize we just met a whole lot of potential strategic partners or competitors and we didn't find a single customer,
Right.
you know. So,
I think trade shows, you have to be very, very, very specific.
mm-hmm.
I'll give you, for instance, one of my clients owns a security company, commercial and home security.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trade show specific to the self-storage industry. He went to that and said, I have products specific for self-storage. I could automate your self-storage. You wouldn't need a resident there. He's getting huge amounts of businesses from that,
Yeah.
but it's very specific.
Very specific, yeah.
The other point you made, Bruce, whenever I have a client that says, we want to go to a trade show, my response is, why do you want to go, and what's your strategy for going? What specifically are you going to do to interact with potential clients and not just competitors? What are you going to do with every business card you come home with? Are you going to remember that person? Are you going to write notes on that business card? Are you going to follow up with those people? How are you going to follow? What is your strategy for that show? Because if you don't have a strategy, don't waste the money.
Yeah, right, absolutely. So that segues into the next question I have, which is the sales side of this, right? So sales for me is, at the level you're operating, it's not like car sales or home sales and consumer facing. At that level, it's really a consultative sales, right?
Yes.
And you have to establish your own expertise. You have to establish what you can do to help people solve the challenges they're facing. Apart from whatever product or service you're selling, you got to say, okay, where do you need help, and what's your problem look like, right? So
Yes.
That's why I love content marketing so much, because that opens that door to talking about having those kinds of conversations. So my question to you is, how many of your clients are pursuing that avenue, and how do they pull that off, right?
Effective selling
Mm-hmm.
with great difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
I think you probably know, Bruce, one of the hardest hires in any company is a good salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
Good salespeople are gainfully employed and probably making a lot of money. So if the owner of the business, if a key person in the business isn't a good salesperson, there's training available. I don't find a lot of it to be particularly effective. There's hiring a salesperson to do that. That's a very difficult hire to get right, because it's likely that you're not going to get someone with a full suite of sales skills. You're going to have to understand what they're missing. Are they trainable? Are they willing to be trained? And can you hire them even knowing they have an incomplete skill set for selling? Sales is very difficult for most businesses. And I think one of the advantages of the tab board environment, almost invariably everyone in that room has had sales failures in terms of hiring salespeople, in terms of training that was less than effective, but they've evolved to more effective selling, either with help of the board or they had already gotten there by trial and error. So that board environment can short circuit a lot of that trial and error. But I find, by the way, I love selling, and to an earlier comment you made, I think selling is all about infinite curiosity. It's about understanding why someone is talking with you. Mm-hmm. It's about understanding their pain points. People buy because of a need or pain. They don't buy because they want. Geez, Bruce, I want a Ferrari. Yeah. I'm not going to go buy one. Yeah. Sorry. It's not causing pain in my life. The lack of a good car would be. Right. So I think effective selling is infinite curiosity. Mm-hmm. And I think someone who's infinitely curious and keeps peeling that onion and asking questions reveals their expertise in doing that. Right. And someone knows that. I've had a lot of people go, just stop me and say, I've never had anyone ask me this many questions.
See, it all comes back to having a conversation that peels back the layer of the onion until you find what is your greatest need, what is the thing
Yes.
I can actually help you with, and okay, if I can find that, give me the opportunity to explain or establish some credibility about how I can do that,
Yes.
right? The
Yeah.
first part of the sales process.
I think it's exactly that. You keep peeling that onion until you understand that. And then there's a simple question. Well, what happens if you don't resolve that issue?
Yeah.
Tell me what happens.
Right.
And I think truly great salespeople never sell. They're infinitely curious. They understand someone, and they're never saying, you know, there's a movie, Glenn Ross,
Yeah.
and one of the things, I love that movie, but it's ABC. You know, always be selling. The point is, you're always selling, always selling, always selling. I think truly great salespeople never sell.
I
They're
couldn't
never
agree
selling.
more. No, I sometimes say it is you're not closing the sale, you're giving it away. Because if you get to that point in the conversation and you go, okay, well, I got to go, another client, they're looking at you like, well, when are you going to come back? I need you. Because
Yeah,
you're literally
yeah.
giving them a solution.
Oh, it's always be closing, Bruce. ABC and Glengarry.
Yeah,
A great salesperson's never closing.
yeah,
They're never selling.
yeah.
They're infinitely curious, and they're peeling that onion, peeling that onion, peeling that onion. A potential client will stop a great salesperson and say, what can you do about this for me?
Right. Yeah, and then, okay.
And then it's consultation. It's not, listen, there's a natural barrier between buyers and sellers. People come up to me in a store and say, do I need help? When I need it, I say no. There's a natural barrier between buyers and sellers. The great salespeople erase that barrier. Concern and empathy is palpable. If I care about you, if I'm consulting with you, you will feel that, and those barriers will start to come down. And a great salesperson erases those barriers, and now we're just having a conversation about your pain and what we can do about it together.
Right. But at the end of the day, that's what you do in the old hunting, gathering tribe culture, which we all evolved out of, is you're all budding up and solving each other's problems.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
not sales, that's solution provider.
That's solutions.
All right. Well, I think we have to wrap up. I want to thank you again. This has been a great show.
My
Please
pleasure.
come back again. You're
I will.
a fascinating person to talk to. It's been
Thank
a
you.
great show. Thank you. We'll see you next time.